you.
Judy, do you have that?
Good evening. The Design Review Board 1 public meeting of September 17th is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by calling our Design Review Board hotline at area code 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and Design Review Board reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his discretion. Roll call, Board Member Aliano.
Here.
Board Member Insua is absent. Board Member Palmer.
Here.
Board Member Simonian is also absent, and Chairman Yu.
Here.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on September 10, 2009. Oral communications. I have no oral communication cards.
I have
Chairman
no cards
Yu?
either.
None as well. Which brings us directly to the review calendar. There are no staff announcements this evening. There are no items on tonight's consent calendar. And so I'll turn the meeting over to Chairman Yu.
Thank you. Welcome to Design Review Board. We have two cases on our agenda, and so we'll just proceed in the order that they're in. Let's see. So let's start with A1 PDR 2009-054-A, 397 Nolan Avenue. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Chair, members of the board. This particular project at 397 Nolan, located here on our left panels. I also have pulled it up. You can see it both on our large screen and the smaller one behind us. Views on, so you can look at it there as well. The project existing right now is a 2,080 square foot, 3-story modern house, and it has an attached 2-car garage. It was completed in 1990. Located between two streets, as you can see Nolan Avenue here on the front, where the driveway and the garage, and Nesmith at the bottom of the hill. You can see it on the pictometry that we have present there as well. And the existing house is set back 14 feet 8 inches from Nolan. There's a 10-foot strip here of land that's kind of like a walk, though it's, as you can see on the drawings, it's not really used for that. And then there's a 1-foot strip down here that is city property. So these two are city property over here. And the proposal is to construct 654 square feet to this house. It will be on 2 levels of the 3-story house. And the design will complement the existing. Now, when you look at our site plan and the first floor, and I'll just sort of work down where the additions are, you can see we have a garage, we have an open area. Look in the photographs. In fact, let me give you these photographs here. There's a nice comparison one. You can see it on the pictometry over here. A little quick, let me just show you here. You can see right now there's a deck right there, open to the sky. There's a small little canvas awning at the back side. Then it drops down a level below that, and it's open there. What the applicant wants to do is fill in this area here, 2 levels up, and then put a patio cover over the top of the middle area. Not enclose it, but just put a patio cover over it, so that This area, as viewed from the street, will have a very similar look to what it looks like now. This roofed area is actually the thin area at the top with these trellis elements below. This is a supporting beam for it. And then you have your additions over here to the side so that you sort of step up. And one of the things we noted in the staff report is there are different forms on the house, and the applicant is pretty much maintaining those types of forms on this house. As noted in the staff report, there was a variance. The applicant was allowed to construct this particular house based on that variance, and he's been consistent with it. And the zoning administrator has made a ruling very recently, all this was in your staff report, that the applicant can construct what they're proposing and be consistent with what the variance is. Of course, that's not into the design part, that's what the board's looking at, but the idea of being able to build is acceptable to the zoning administrator as long as they stay underneath the height of the original approval. And as you can see here, one of the things is, the topography sort of slopes down here, so you have a relatively tall side here, but all the addition's going to be over here on the short side, and it will be below this tallest version here. There's also a nice photograph here that I'd like to show you that gives from across the valley, sort of gives you some kind of a context look, which is nice. All the residential areas in this neighborhood are the single-family hillside type properties. And when you compare them, this property, in terms of the lot size, the setbacks, floor area ratio, and number of stories, is very compatible with its neighbors. In fact, when we look at and met with the applicant about their site planning, their mass and scale, their building design, and detailing, the staff felt that the applicant was building pretty consistent with what we thought would be a very compatible style house, internally consistent, and with the neighbors in the area. And when you look at the photographs and the elevations presented, it seems to reflect that. Now, the colors and materials, and they'll be doing stucco, but there'll be changes in what they're in what's out there now, and you can see the different points, and that was highlighted in your staff report as well. Overall, the staff felt that this project was complementary to the area, and we would recommend approval. I can end this report on that note. It's pretty straightforward. But I can answer questions. We have the applicant here and the property owners here as well.
Do we have any questions for staff?
I'd like the applicant to come up, answer a few questions.
Well, maybe we could do it. We could do it after the
Okay, that's fine.
talk then. We might have to come up. Do you have any questions for staff? Okay, thank you very much. Okay. And maybe we'll have Elizabeth Aaron please come up. And please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Elizabeth Heron, and I reside at 935 West Avenue 37 in the City of Los Angeles.
Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to speak a little bit about the project, just to flesh out a little bit what Chris has already said. The original owner the owner that is now wanting to do this addition constructed the house in the 90s, and at the time he was single, and this was what he could afford to do. And so now that he has a family, he wanted to add a little floor area onto the project. And since he had a very nicely architecturally designed project in a contemporary style, we are just trying to take that and augment it, update it, add a little square floor area, and create something that we felt was compatible with itself and its environment. So the house itself, the design concept included there were three masses to the house, which was nice because in a lot of hillside projects you get this big massive blockish building. And I really wanted to respect that and maintain that with this additional work. So I didn't want to just add a big chunk of square footage onto it and box it out. So I tried to create and maintain the identity of the three massings so that it doesn't look so kind of blockish on the hill. And I think we've achieved that. We're trying to work with some color and some shadow and some of the elements as well. So that was one idea that we had that I think this design respects. And we also like it. The existing house has roof parapets which tend to leak. And we've had some issues with sort of the streaking of the stucco. So what we're trying to do is create something, and also to put a few roof overhangs on it. And roof overhangs, of course, help, in a passive solar way, screen some of the light and protect the structure. So that was something that we took of the architectural style and kind of augmented it and altered it slightly for today's style. So it's kind of the whole thing.
Okay. Do we have any questions for her?
Yes. Could you come up to the...
Sure.
We have a pointer.
These are just clarification questions.
There's a lot of levels, so it's
Right.
confusing.
Let's see, floor plan.
Okay, so which level? Is this the
I'm
uppermost
looking
level?
at
The lowermost
this.
level?
these, if I'm correct. Is there a window here and here? Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, this is the plan of the lowermost level, so we're really
I'm
not
looking-
doing any work on that one. So the mid-level is where we're doing work. We're adding this piece on the mid-level, and then we're adding this piece on the uppermost level, which is the garage level.
Okay, I'm confused where, difficult. Where is this section?
This plan is here.
Where's this window?
That is the existing side of the house, so let's see, there might be some windows on this bathroom that I'm not showing on here.
Okay,
on the
that's
plan.
where I'm confused. But those are remaining.
Yeah, we're not touching those, I just
And on the lower
looking
level,
over there, so I didn't focus too much.
the lower level,
The lowest, most, where we're not doing any work.
okay, and that's,
Again, I probably missed a few things. This is what you're looking at with
Right.
these doors, so you can kind of see this door and this door. I don't think I showed these windows
Okay.
on the plan.
that's where I was
Sorry about that.
confused. And this, what material is used for this?
We're like going to wrap it with a metal fascia, and it's going to be like a metal material so that we don't have any maintenance to deal with.
Do a standing metal seam roof at 1 to 12?
Yes, you can do it almost virtually flat. There's some kinds that you can't, but standing seam you can.
What's
And just a quick one. So this is the lighter color, right? That's this one. But the texture is different? Or?
Well, yeah, this was kind of a stucco color, so it's going to be a smooth. We're not going to have a steel trowel. This is going to. They'll all be about
or
this
just
color.
a screen?
Yeah.
Screen
Okay, so that's the texture, it just happens that's the color.
So you'll have this and all that, and then this remains the...
Well, we're going to kind of change that color up a little bit. My Photoshop is a little bit not quite the right color.
Yeah, this is very nice. And this is an existing, right?
And
You're
I was
just
just showing a
retreating it.
shadow line,
You're
yeah.
just treating it with new paint.
Yeah, we're just updating it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what's the fascia like?
It's going to be the metal fascia, because it's way up there, so you don't want to have to ever do
Okay.
any maintenance
So are
on
these
it.
all metal as well?
Mhm.
So everything is metal, then this is
And the
metal.
railing will match.
And
yeah.
these cables are...
Yeah, I think we
Cable?
might do cable, but we don't have cable there now, so
yeah, okay. Excellent.
it might be kind of a cable look
All right.
with wrought iron.
Very good.
The patio cover on the top level,
Mhm.
can you talk about that a little bit? Is it just going to be wood, or what are you going to, what's the material?
Well, let's see. It's just going to be Well, I'm using like a Duralast, so it's like a smooth cover, but I wanted to kind of create a trellis feature underneath, so that's why you're seeing the beam ends coming out, so that we could put potted plants in here and then soften this up a little bit. It's kind of the concept. That's why I left this trellis underneath. And then this is basically a plywood with an edge cap and a little flashing on it to kind of minimize the roof component of it. I mean, we want to have a roof, but we don't really want to have the roof read that much. I kind of wanted the beam ends to read with the trellising
So
element.
it's solid.
So there's a solid roof here on top.
okay.
So it's
Because it gets really
plywood.
hot up there, so we needed a solid cover.
It's
So
plywood
it's
capturing-
plywood with like a
capturing.
Duralast or a,
So there's no gutters and... For the building. Probably has to be
building safety
class A,
yeah. Yeah,
I'll
I
let you
might
go
not,
down that way.
yeah, I might not
So
get my
I'm
trellis in
sorry,
there.
underneath here, is this all exposed woodwork?
Well, it's not going to be wood. It's going to be like a stucco soffit. It's going to be a non-fire.
What color do you think it will be?
Actually, I'm going to correct myself. I'm going to wrap the metal around so that
The bottom?
it's a solid mass. So you get this sort of feeling of a solid metal cap there.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. Because
It's gonna be better.
it looks nice dark.
Yeah,
Instead
'cause
of a
it'll be
white.
very prominent.
This is a really
Yeah.
nice piece. And
'Cause you
it's
look-
nice contrast to that. You know, you have solid and more like a transparent piece.
Like a hat kind of.
Yeah, it looks good. Okay. I have no other.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I have one more card for this project. Rick Williams, did you want to come up? Okay. And please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Rick Williams. I live at 397 Nolan Avenue, Glendale. I just want to state that when I originally designed this with an architect, it was designed clear back in the 80s, but it took quite a while to get it built. When I built it, my budget kind of dictated that when the architect got done, I said, I can't afford this. And I didn't want to go that deep into debt with a bank, so because I had a fair amount of money put away. But knowing we were going to downsize, the house originally looked pretty much like this, but we downsized it so I could afford to build it at the time. But knowing that I was going to add these on when I could afford it, I did spend an extra $50,000 in the foundation during construction preparing to do this down the line, but I didn't know that hillside homes in 20 years are going to be such a hot topic. At the time, it would have been no problem to add these on, but now everything matters. But I just wanted you to know that it was always in the plans. It just took a little longer than expected to get here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for him? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else out there that wants to speak on this project? Okay. Then we'll close it and discuss. Gio, would you like to get us started on this one?
Sure. Well, I'd like to commend the architect. I think you've done a really nice job. I don't really have any concerns whatsoever. I think I like the detailing that you provided for the additional piece. I like the way it's contrasting the solid block. So compositioning, I think, even when you look at the rendering, you can see it's the most attractive building there. I think the neighbors are just going to have to disappear in terms of the aesthetic, because this is just much nicer than what's around there. The only thing that I would suggest is if there's any way, and I think maybe Judy might have something to say about this, but because when you notice at this building and also the neighbors, they tend to have a very strong base, because of the slope. And nobody has really done anything there with those bases. They just see them exposed. And because yours is closer and there's a big opening towards the end of the street, it'll be nice if you can do some planting there, maybe some vines that kind of can grow onto that base, and maybe have some shrubberies. I don't know if there's any issues with that in terms of fire code, but it's something you might want to check into, maybe some drought-resistant planting, just to sort of give it a more of a green base here, see? And you're creating some greenery, and the house, I think, will feel like it's really floating rather than having this sort of very inarticulate base, which I know you didn't create, but that's just the nature of what's there. I also like the fact that it's going to cover the end of this house, which right now looks quite abrupt, not very very interesting. So I think for me, it works. I like the metal. I like the fact that you're going to wrap the bottom with the dark metal as well, so that this becomes, like you said, like a hat. And again, there's a really nice contrast between the two. The change of color is good. The idea of some really nice details on the railing. That's what I would put some money in, is to do a really nice rail. Because you see it, it's really what this is all about. It's about all these little... so I'm 100% for it.
Thank you.
I agree with all the previous comments, and I think it's nicely done. The color palette is very well done. I also agree that there needs to be some softening on that open side. But I would also want to make it one of the requirements that the front be re-landscaped. You've got that steep slope there, and it's going to be difficult to do something, but if you did it in like a small ice plant, which would require less water, and I think that would help a lot. But I think that would make that a requirement.
And you do agree at the base to plant
At the
some
base,
in there?
yes, definitely. I mean, it's very difficult on that steep slope, but I think there are some things they can get in there with a drip system that would grow and not take much maintenance.
Okay, thank you. I concur with most of the comments. I would just say that the elevations were very hard to read. I think they look like CAD drawings that were brought into Photoshop, and then it just lost all of the line weights and everything, so it's very hard to read. That sketch basically saved it for me. I had a hard time understanding what was going on. I like what you're doing with keeping them solid massing and the kind of as it wraps in, and utilizing the horizontal lines across there. I think it's well done. I'm ready to support the project. So, do we want to entertain a motion on this?
Yeah, I'll move for approval with the two requirements. The one is the some landscape scheme for the base of the building. Actually, one requirement, I guess, base of the building and then at the front of the building, and there really is nothing there. And then I also think it should be on the record that the architect is planning on covering the soffit with the same metal. That's part of the decision, part of the approval.
So because we don't have those details in the presentation, just to clarify the details that were discussed and agreed to, we'd like to make them as part of the conditions.
That's what I meant.
So the wrapping of the metal fascia, that was at the outdoor portion, at the covering or around at the two sides of that roof of that open area.
Right.
There's also a metal fascia that's discussed. Actually, that metal fascia is shown now at each level, so that at all of the roofs, that metal fascia will show, and at the outdoor space, that metal fascia then wraps around whatever horizontal structural member there is on the two elevations, the front and rear.
Right.
So that will be a condition. So we'll incorporate that as a condition everywhere we see that on the elevation, and make that particular condition at the sunshade that slightly different. There was also discussion about the rail. It's not a cable rail, but it is shown as a horizontal rail. The architect mentioned that it would be in wrought iron. There was discussion about it being well detailed, but we may be wondering if there's more information that we should provide as part of the condition.
I would just say that, I think the architect agreed that it would be metal of some sort. It could be painted metal, and the railing could be either rods or cable. Is that some?
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say
Sorry,
let's
we
go
can't,
with cables.
because it's being
Okay,
recorded.
so we'll condition it as a cable rail,
System, right.
and
With
we
metal-
got
with metal verticals and metal.
right. It's a metal rail with cable horizontals, and So we've got the fascia, we've got the drought-resistant planting around the base at the back, and were we talking for the landscaping at the front setback, just the ground cover? Because you mentioned an ice plant.
There's really no way they can plant shrubs.
Okay.
It's too steep. And
Okay, so a ground cover recommending an ice plant or some other drought
only
tolerant.
recommending that because it will grow on the slopes, a small ice plant. It'll be a lighter green that will complement the coloring.
Okay.
So
Okay, great. So thanks for clarifying those.
And then what would you recommend for the back, for the base at the back, at the downslope?
I have to think about that. It's real steep too. But we need some
But
shrubs.
it should cover that base a little bit, I think.
I
That's
wouldn't
it.
go with vines, but if the applicant wants to, make some suggestions, we could look at those.
But that's also a staff level approval, so staff will review the landscape choices.
I'll think about it and contact.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I made a motion to move for approval with the requirements that we just stated.
And I'll second that.
Chair, we have, members of the board, we have a motion to approve with conditions and roll call. Mr. Aliano,
Yes.
Ms. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Yu.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Let's go to our second project.
Would you mind just one moment? I want to bring
Sure.
up the aerial actually on
What's the address?
computer system. If you don't, 1755 Victory Boulevard. This would be our materials board. And be careful because this piece keeps popping off. This would be the photographs of the project site, as well as the photographs of the neighborhood. All right, Chairman Yu, board members. The next case is case number 1-PDR 2009-046A. The project site is located at 1755 Victory Boulevard. This would be the northeast corner of Victory and Thompson Avenue. The applicant is Sacco Marcusi. This is a first-time submittal for final review. The project consists of, actually, here's the aerial. 1 second. I'm trying to bring it up. I'll just take one moment, please. As the computer's still trying to boot up, the project site consists actually of three particular buildings, 2 of which are residential. As soon as the aerial photograph boots up, we'll be able to show you. One would be a single-family home that faces Thompson Avenue, as well as a duplex. You'll notice that in the photographs of the existing project site. The other buildings are comprised of 3 separate commercial buildings that are attached, and those buildings face Victory Boulevard. They're now known as Snooki's Cookies, which will be relocating. The entire site will be demolished as part of the project, and proposed is a 3-story, approximately 22,000 square foot building with 61 on-site parking spaces, both at grade and in a subterranean level garage. The project was reviewed for environmental. There was a mitigated negative declaration prepared. There was one mitigation measure that was attached. That would be in regards to making sure that a liquefaction study is prepared per special publication 117. This is because the project site is located within a liquefaction zone. There was a soils report that was submitted, but we needed to have confirmation from their engineers that the liquefaction study was prepared per the special publication 117 as required by code. The mitigated negative declaration was reviewed for a period of 20 days. We've received 2 comments. The 2 comments were addressed in the final mitigated negative declaration, and the mitigated negative declaration will have to be approved by you prior to rendering a decision on this particular project. Now, going back into the project details, as I mentioned, the project site is bordered on Victory Boulevard to the south, Thompson Avenue to the east. There is a multifamily residential development neighborhood along Thompson Avenue, and along Victory Boulevard, it's all zoned as C3 commercial services. The area itself is comprised mainly of 1-story commercial buildings. However, most of those commercial buildings are located on larger consolidated lots, and typically those existing 1-story structures have a greater height floor-to-ceiling ratio than what you would normally find in a low-scale commercial neighborhood. So I'm going to go into the building mass and scale later on in my staff presentation, but I just wanted to mention that the residential neighborhood to the north along Thompson is a mixture of 1-story, some very few remaining single-family homes. The majority, though, are 2- and 3-story multifamily residential apartment and condominium buildings. The site itself is located in the urban design guideline study area of Victory Boulevard and vicinity. You'll notice that it's a mixture of commercial, lower scale retail, and office type buildings. There are quite a number of industrial buildings as well. The site is approximately 14,275 square feet. The proposal consists of 22,000 square feet of office, and this would be a general office, not medical office. You'll notice that there's 1 level of subterranean garage as well as parking on the first floor. The parking is screened by an architectural screening on the first floor, so it is not visible from the street elevation facing Victory. The main entrance lies on the corner of Victory Boulevard and Thompson, which is appropriate given the fact that many of the other corner locations have entrances facing the corner intersection as well. The second and third floors obviously are devoted to tenant spaces. The building itself is approximately 90 feet in width, 120 feet in depth. There's a 5-foot setback on the front elevation as required by code. There's also a 21-foot setback along the rear as required by code, but again, that setback is rather substantial, and so it gives relief from the adjacent multifamily 2-story building to the rear. Now, the staff report, as you'll notice, was rather lengthy. It had a great number of details. It was essentially broken down into 3 main components. I would be more than happy to actually give these to you, and these would be the letters so that you can review them as well as I'm presenting the staff report. One was the site planning, as I just alluded to. Pretty much the building is built up against the sidewalk as suggested in the urban design guidelines, except for the 5-foot required front setback. In terms of courtyards, again, it's rather a compact 22,000 square foot commercial building. Typically, you don't see many courtyards in this type of structure. There is somewhat of a, and you'll notice here that it's cut out on the 2nd and 3rd floors. There's the terrace, so that does provide a little bit of open space for use by the patrons. In terms of landscaping, the majority of the landscaping for this project is located, and the landscaping plan is back here, either within the planters along the front facade that block the parking to the behind it, Or also, there's quite a bit of landscaping along the rear corner areas, and that would be along the circular drive going down to the subterranean garage. Again, there is more than ample trees planted. There's a requirement for trees, 1 per every 25 linear feet. They've actually provided above and beyond that. There's 6 trees. There's substantial screening, and again, that's also to help make the separation from the commercial to the residential to the rear. Parking arrangements are as suggested per the design guidelines. It does not, the parking does not face Victory Boulevard. It is screened with a building facade. Then the majority of the parking is located underground in the subterranean garage level. Second main issue of the design of our staff report would be physical design components. You'll notice that this is rather a contemporary, modern design. The design is carried throughout the entire building. It's relatively a volume, a square volume, that is clad in glass fenestration. The fenestration along the front entryway wraps around on both the Victory and the Thompson sides. You'll notice here, probably best in this particular perspective, how the entryway, the glass volume is wrapped around. There's also a geometric frame punched opening that is facing Victory Boulevard. It's directly in the center of the building. That same type of punched opening frame that's clad in the stainless steel and aluminum is also shown here, Victory Boulevard, and this would be the Thompson elevation. So you'll have that same type of repetitive pattern on Victory and the Thompson facades. You'll notice that there's a 3-story full-height travertine-clad stairwell shaft that anchors the southeast corner of the building. The same type of structure, or I should say stairwell cladding, is also anchoring the northwest corner, so you'll have that juxtaposition of the full-height travertine-clad stairwell. This, you'll notice, is actually the elevator shaft, and so again, you have sort of the symmetry and geometry. The overall height of the building is 41 feet, which is in compliance with the height standards for the C3 zone. The rear, and this is, I guess, there's a little bit of confusion based on the plans. There's a northeast elevation versus a southeast elevation, and that's simply because of the orientation of the north arrow. What I will label now and use is the interior elevations, which would be essentially the elevation facing the north residential streets. You'll notice that specifically there's the juxtaposition of solids and voids. You still have that elevator shaft, but now you have the walkways that are leading from the second and third floors for accessibility. You'll also notice that there's a treatment of this other half where the windows have been actually slanted away. There's a plaster type half entry. The windows have been slanted away from the rear residential. So that's specifically in sensitivity to the multifamily residential that's directly behind it. The other, what I would say the interior elevation in this case would be the easterly elevation, and this would be directly facing the building that's to the east along Victory Boulevard. Is somewhat subdued compared to the other elevations. There is the use of 2 types or 2 colors of block. It would be the natural block and then I believe it's called a natural gray block. So it would be a natural color and then the gray color. Staff, because this is basically the only ornamentation other than the cutout of that recessed second and third floors, staff had a suggestion to either go ahead and try to utilize more of a detailed treatment to that facade, either by choosing 2 different types of actual finishes to the concrete block or making the colors more varied or something along the lines to create less of this monotone impact, other that's punctuated in the center on the second and third floors. Again, this is a contemporary building. They've used travertine stone cladding. There's aluminum cladding on the frame elevations. You'll notice, and you can't really tell this front elevation here doesn't have the detail that this particular rendering does, but they do have a steel type venting system which has sort of an architectural swivel to it to actually You'll notice here, and perhaps I can take it down if you need be, but then that is also then buffered by additional landscaping, and set between those you'll have the landscaping planters themselves. So again, there is definitely an overall architectural treatment of the building. Last but not least, just a few other details. Paving materials, the guidelines stress paving materials be used when they're within walkways. In this case, staff is suggesting that some sort of glasscrete to sort of give that sort of modern, contemporary look be utilized at the ground level by the entrances and along the walkways themselves. The service facilities and mechanical equipment is located actually in the subterranean garage. We want to make sure also that when they come back for a plan check, there was a condition of approval that was suggested that to all the fire hydrants and other mechanical equipment that might be located outside the building be addressed by the zoning staff, so to ensure that everything's integrated and they're not within any required setbacks and it doesn't detract from the contemporary look of the building. Walls and fences, there's a requirement that a 5.5-foot decorative concrete block wall be provided at the rear to buffer, and this would be along this rear next to the landscaping, to buffer between the commercial use and the residential use to the rear. Again, that's another condition of approval that's suggested by staff in the staff report. A sign program will be required if there are more than 2 tenants for this building. Sign program is not part of this design review board approval, but again, if in the future, if this building is subdivided, we will need to come back to you for a sign program. In addition to the conditions I just mentioned regarding the masonry wall, the enhancement of the treatment of this particular elevation with more pronounced material or different types of blocks. There are a few other items. The third one would be to submit a landscaping plan because staff felt that in terms of landscaping that could really enhance or detract from the architectural treatment of this project. The fourth would be to provide glasscrete. The fifth was to make sure that there is an updated site plan regarding the mechanical equipment. And the last was to make sure that all unused curb cuts would be replaced and treated. That is just a brief summary of the detailed staff report. I would like to again repeat, there is a mitigated negative declaration for this project with 1 mitigation measure for the liquefaction study. We received 2 comments. These comments were specifically geared toward parking and the fact that does this project provide the required parking? There have been problems before in the past in this neighborhood simply because of many of the commercial structures were built at a time when either parking was not required on site or very little parking was required. And so unfortunately, there's been overflow of patrons into the residential side streets. Again, this particular project complies with all of code requirements. There's 60 spaces that are required by code for this project. 61 are provided, so there's adequate parking on site for both patrons and employees. That concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Do you have any questions?
Oh, and I would like to add, and forgive me, this was submitted right before the start of the meeting. There was a petition. I could have actually let the applicant. There was a signed petition submitted by the property owner, and I believe there's some 30-odd signatures, and we have still yet to verify that, but I'll pass out copies, and perhaps the architect, Sacco Marcusin, or the property owner can best address this as well.
Okay. Okay, so we'll start with the cards. Sacco Marcusin, if you could please come up and state your name and address.
Good evening, Chairman Yu, Commissioner Aliano, Ms. Palmer. My name is Sako Marcusi with Alger J. Marcusi Architects. I'm located at 320 Arden Avenue in Glendale. The project before you is something that we started about 4.5 months ago. My client came to me. He has certain requirements based on some due diligence that he did for several months on the project before acquiring the property, and making sure that what will make sense to actually invest and build this building. And, we did several studies, and we came up with the best scenario based on the square footage, heights, parking, orientation, all of that, which will make sense both economically as a project and as what he needs actually, because he's going to be occupying one floor of this building. My client is a consultant to some cosmetic firms and pharmaceuticals, and he's been based in Glendale for several years, and he likes to stay here, so that's what he wanted me to emphasize, that this is his home, and he's employing tens of people, and he hopes to hopefully grow into this building and someday basically probably occupy the entire building. That said, the architecture approach was very simple. We did a study what was needed in terms of square footage and number of parking, and the constraints of site dictated what we have. Then we went to the neighborhood and we saw the typology. What types of buildings are there around this neighborhood? As William mentioned, they're along Victory. They're mostly 1- and 2-story commercial buildings, relatively simple facades, except for a few far in between. So we took that and brought it into more of a contemporary era, and the treatment, as you see, it's a very durable materials, which is I have a combination of metal cladding. There's a composite aluminum panels on both on Victory and Thompson, and then the tower elements or the vertical elements that are grounded, they are stone clad in travertine, and then a third element, which is more of a closer to what the residential side is the plaster, which is on the residential side. And on the fourth element is the precision blocks that we're using right on the property line, which is that last colored elevation. That is sitting on the property line. Eventually, when all the Victory is developed, that you probably won't see that wall anymore. So it's something that is going to be seen while the single-story buildings are there. But eventually, I think, once Victory is developed to its fullest, I think that will be gone. That will be covered. For that, we're using the burnish block, which has two different colors. The finish is smooth. It has the lighter and darker of the gray tones, and it goes well with the aluminum anodized aluminum fenestration and the composite metal that we're using. So overall, the materials are clean and precise, and the building and that lends itself to the type of a building that we're putting here. If you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the architect?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
What is the rear wall, the property, the existing rear wall on the adjacent property is there, and then this drops down into the parking area with a retaining wall? Is that?
We do plan to have a fence wall along the rear property, and it's, as William mentioned, 5.5 feet tall. But the neighbor already has a wall. But if we're obliged to put a wall, we want to put a wall there, and then between our fence wall and the building, there's a ramp that gradually goes down to the subterranean level. Along the ramp, the landscape sort of moves with the ramp. So
So it's not 5 feet all the way?
No, it's not. So, yeah. So the landscaping sort of cascading down to the lower level. Yeah.
And I have another question. What is the material in the entrance
The,
alcove
or the actual,
on the corner?
the corner, it's, you mean at the
Any
entry?
material.
Or the flooring? Well, we were planning to use the travertine, the same travertine that we're using on the walls, on the floors, but only more of a like a flamed type of a finish, so it will not be smooth and it would be more of a safe for walking surfaces outside of the building, and carrying that travertine in a sort of a linear pattern on the interior of the building. That was our plan. And if you notice, we have some also some travertine walls at different heights, which makes it a planter and a sign wall and a stoop where you come up to that entrance.
And one more question, the planters that you have on the Victory side,
Yes.
they appear to be on the plan at maximum 12 inches. Is that
The
true?
the planting area is actually the planting area is some like 16 inches, and the planter walls themselves are 4-inch thick walls, prefabricated. Will have a finish of.
So you're saying the planting area would be 16,
Yeah,
or that
16.
includes the 4-inch?
That is a 4-inch wall and 16 inches of planting, and there's the parking. Yeah. So they're meant to be more of a planting, which more of an accent rather than like, it's maybe some seasonal colors and then some permanent, planting as my landscape architect has
In the 16
provided.
inch?
It is, yeah, it's quite small.
That's the only questions I have.
I have one.
Sure.
The Luca bond you have here, this is it's the silver color, right?
Right.
So what's shown there in beige is actually going to be silver.
Yes, it is silver. Actually, we chose the silver, but once the environment, when you bring it to a rendering environment, the 3D Max and all the lighting and everything, the surrounding sort of the reflection. If it was, but it is, yeah, that's the color.
So it
yes.
will be the silver.
Both for
and that
the-
would be the grid that you have on.
Yes, also the grid, right.
So these guys right here, right? All of this
Yes,
and all of this,
yes.
but nothing in the back, right? Nothing at the residential.
No, on the
Plaster,
residential
right?
side, no.
This is plaster.
The only-
everything.
Yes, travertine and plaster, and
What are the columns? Are they plaster or painted? Are they
the columns are smooth plaster again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have metal railing.
I have metal railing, yes. And one thing I forgot to mention, Velia mentioned that briefly. It's not quite seen, but the screening between the parking and the and the walkway, they are perforated aluminum panels that they're like sort of curvilinear shapes that juxtapose against each other, so create a geometry, and then they are lit at night, uplit, so it really gives you this dramatic effect. Yeah.
Those are the
okay,
panels.
Yeah. Right, those panels, yes.
Yeah, these right here. These.
Right, those, correct.
So those are metal.
Yeah. I think that night shot probably shows a better, yeah.
In the back, they're not, right? They're just in the front?
No, in the back it's all open.
It's like a chain link or something? Or
I'm sorry,
Different.
which?
Oh, these right here.
Yeah, those, yes.
Ah.
Yeah,
And you have, and then you have them in the back as well.
right.
you do have them in the back?
On both streets. Wherever I have parking exposed, those screenings act as a screen between the parking and the street. Yes.
Right, very nice.
So it looks like the block you're turning the corner with here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought about several ways of finishing that corner, but I can't carry the block over because structurally, and I thought about putting block cladding, but that, I don't know. It's not honest, put block cladding on block wants to be bearing block, yeah, so.
Do you have any thoughts about possibly taking that and turning the corner here? To this corner? Yeah, I think it's a good, yeah, sure. You're right, yeah. The same thing that I did on the back, you're right, yeah. Mm-hmm. You'd be open to that?
Yes, I'd be open to that, yes.
That's the front,
Mm-hmm.
right, which you see.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Right.
Otherwise, that corner is going to be stone.
Correct,
that's
yeah,
what you wanna return.
right, yeah.
How far would you return it?
I mean, I think it has to be proportional with whatever these guys are.
Mm-hmm.
'cause there's a proportion that he's using from here and then how far it's going back.
Right.
So it's probably similar to that. Something probably like that. But, yeah, we can talk.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The next card that I have is, I'm sorry, I can't read the first name on it. Is a consultant, project manager. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Yes,
please.
my name is Jean-Pierre Gainier. I'm a general contractor and CEO for Gainier Construction Company. We will be working with the architect and the owner on this project. Sacco has pretty much covered everything that I had wanted to talk about. The building itself speaks for itself. I don't know if you're familiar with the area, if you've been down there, but this will be quite an asset to the community. And both the commercial areas on Victoria and this new building. The construction on this is all concrete and metal. There's no flammable woods on it. So other than that, we're looking at from my standpoint, a 7 to a 9 month project in the city for completion. And that's all I have.
Do we have any questions for? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next card, we have Ryan Harper. Name and address for the record, please.
Ryan Harper, one of the business owners that occupy 1811 Victory, the building adjacent to off Thompson. Sorry.
Okay.
I agree. It'd be a complete asset to the neighborhood. It's kind of blighted, so it's probably be the most beautiful building in 3 blocks. I have two concerns. One is the parking, and I don't know if this is the place to bring it up, but okay.
You have the podium. Go ahead.
Just that if the parking is off Thompson like that, we have a parking lot just like that would be adjacent to their parking lot exit and entrance, and right now there's parking allowed on both sides of the street.
Okay.
And so it ends up being pretty much a single lane street when the cars are parked there. So I would just recommend maybe that you somehow make both sides of the street non-parking red zones or something. I don't know if that's concerned, because even with 10 cars on our lot, at 4 or 5 o'clock it gets kind of congested, and it is a residential street.
So you want no parking on the street so that there's better flow on the street?
Yeah, I think at least from where their building starts and where our parking lot starts to Victory, which is probably 5 or 6 spaces on each side. But I mean, obviously, I think that they might not.
Where are you? Which one? Where are you?
We're on Thompson, directly adjacent.
Across Thompson, then.
It'd be kind of northwest of the building. Yeah, their parking entrance would be exactly where our parking is. Yes. That's the first concern. Second concern is we operate a sound recording studio for the movie business, and I just like to maybe work with them in terms of the schedule of the excavation and the pounding. They did recently do the jackhammer the corners sidewalks for the handicap ramps without letting us know, and for at least 2 days we were out of commission. I mean, and they didn't give us any advance notice, and that impacts our business severely because it vibrates
You need to
the entire
talk with
facility.
Your, PM.
I know.
The construction.
I'm glad he got up here. So
We can definitely work something out.
I'm sorry, we can't have cross communication, but
that's it. Other than that, welcome to have them as neighbors. And
okay.
Do you have a job opening? Thank you.
Does the city get a commission if they connect it? Thank you.
No, and the DRB members don't either.
I didn't expect anything. Next card, we have Gabriel Vasquez. Gabriel, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the panel. First and foremost, I'm here as a resident of the community for over 11 years now. My family's been in Glendale for approximately 40 years, So, of course, I love this community. And I'm also here as a representative to Snooki's Cookies, who is currently on the property.
Did you bring any samples for us, or?
No, not today. I did bring a letter from the CEO, and I'm representing the employees, if I can.
I'll take that. Thanks.
I'm representing the employees as well as the president's partners, which I will read to you, and then I'll go on as a resident. To whom it may concern, I would like to offer this letter in support of the proposed construction at 1753, 1755, and 1757, the demolition site, obviously. The demolition of the existing buildings and the erecting of the modern office building will be beneficial to the neighborhood in many ways. First, the street will be visibly enhanced. There has not been any new construction in the immediate neighborhood in many years. The upgrade on this corner will hopefully be a springboard to other businesses in the immediate area to update their sites and modernize the area. Second, the increase of the square footage will bring new companies to the area, therefore increasing the number of available jobs in the immediate neighborhood. The opportunity for jobs and local residents will be a tremendous boost to the overall health of the community. Last, with the increase of people working in the area comes an increase of commerce to the surrounding businesses. All of the restaurants, convenience stores, filling stations, service, and retail stores will have immediate increase in potential customers when the building is open. All the local businesses will benefit from this building. In conclusion, as a business owner in the neighborhood, in fact, the very owner of the business that has to vacate the property in question, I give my support to the project 100% and urge the City of Glendale to encourage and assist this and any other construction that will improve our community. Sincerely, Peter Lieberman, CEO and President of Snooki's Cookies and More. Now, as a resident, as I said, I've lived there for over 11 years. The building that's currently residing there, it's a blot on Victory. There has been improvement in building up and down Victory on it, nothing big, painting here and there. However, this building, as you can see, is beautiful. The corner on which you walk in, it would be where the entrance of Snooki's Cookies was. I went up and down to my neighbors, got petition signed. Unfortunately, I didn't get to get all of the signatures. And no one has a problem as long as there is parking. Unfortunately, Snooki's at this current time does not have parking, in which case we invade our community, my street. But I fully endorse this project. I fully endorse this project and the fact that it will bring our neighbors, Sherry Clips, the liquor stores, Mambo's Cafe, businesses that have unfortunately dried up with the economy. So, again, as a community member, I fully support this project. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the cards that I have for this project. Is anyone else interested in speaking? Come on up.
By the way, we do have the aerial photograph up now for your review.
Thank you. You state your name and address, please.
I'm Aram Alajajian, partner in Alajajian Marcusi Architects. The address is 320 Arden, City of Glendale. We've been in the City of Glendale for over 25 years doing projects, and it's a pleasure to hear this kind of comments and have this kind of a DRB meeting. Actually, I think we architects and the owner really work hard to bring something good for the community and for the city fabric as well. So I ask the board, and all the comments are well taken. Thanks to the neighbors that came across and brought up their concerns. I think the construction company will be accommodating most of those things. So I would ask the board if approval of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's it for all the cards. No one else? Last chance. No? Okay. We'll close it and discuss. Would you like to go first?
I agree with one of the comments regarding wrapping this around this area, because I think this elevation up here, I think, is very nice, and I like the idea that the neighbors are not looking into the neighbor building. But this elevation, in my opinion, suffers, and I think changing materials, increasing the color variation would really help that. I agree with the gentleman that spoke about the parking, because I tried to turn my truck around there the other day with only one driveway, and it is a problem. So I think that should be considered. The other thing is the I've looked at the landscape plan, and I appreciate the fact that they have put an excess number of trees around the back perimeter, but I think the choice of tree could be a problem with the apartments next door. The trees proposed are going to get 20, 25 feet wide, and there's only a 6-foot difference between the wall and the apartment buildings, so the people, and they're dense trees, so the people will be looking into that. So I would recommend something taller, narrower, maybe an arbutus variety tree, which is a drought-tolerant, narrow tree, and maybe increase the sizes of the planting in the back there, since that is the only plantings, from 5 to 15 gallons. Other than that, I think that's the only questions I have, or comments I have.
Can you repeat the type of tree you would recommend?
An arbutus unido.
Okay, thank you.
And the common name would be arbutus.
I think he's on the Lakers. You should look him up.
I'm drawing a blank here. I'm drawing a blank.
I'm sorry. We'll double check that after. We'll look it up after. Thanks.
Okay. Would you like to go next?
Yeah, one clarification, maybe you can help me. This is the adjacent building, right?
Yeah.
This darker portion, right? Okay. So you're coming in, all right. So you were suggesting to wrap this at least a certain...
Yeah, because I think
distance.
they're right. I mean, in the future, they are going to probably build that high, if, but at least
Yeah,
that
this could
corner
be
we should
done
protect.
someday. Yeah, I agree. I think maybe in proportion, you should probably do it in proportion to what's in the front. Either half of that, or maybe the same length, or double that, whichever you think is right. But something should happen. I agree with that. The back, I think that's done in this plaster here, right? So would you see an edge of CMU block?
They actually have a whole row.
Oh, okay.
There's a whole
I see.
pilaster there.
Okay, great. Good. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, it's nice to see that the community is really into this.
Yeah, I think
That makes our job so much easier. And I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's a really nice project. Well designed, very thoughtful in every way. I think you've basically treated each elevation a different way, because each elevation has to be different because of orientation, because of adjacencies, because of all these things. And you've done that. I mean, it's very hard to really say anything negative about what you've done. I think I only have good things to say about this project in terms of how you've handled it and designed it. At first, when I saw it, I said, well, it's kind of tall, but it is a commercial strip. And eventually, things will go up, maybe, as high as this. So I'm not too concerned about that elevation, the one that has the block, because eventually something will go there. But I do agree, I think you should wrap the front a little bit, just so that in the meantime, it will look complete. I like what you've done in the rear, with next to the residential, where you have the buffer zone for the driveway and the ground, and then the screens, and those screens are quite beautiful as well. I think because, and I'm not saying that you need to change anything, I'm just sort of, because it's a commercial building and it's a commercial site, and the street is eventually will get activated even more, I'm just kind of curious whether there was an opportunity here to, and I know it's probably a parking issue, but the beautiful base that you've designed with the panels, all the lighting, which is very attractive, because it's a commercial street. I would have personally liked to have seen some kind of either small retail or whatever could be done at the base so that you could activate more. But having said that, I'm not saying you have to do that. It's just what I would have expected. But you've done a nice job rendering it, a nice job planning it, and my hope is that whatever develops next to it in the future, to the other side, as the street evolves, there'll be more of that at the base, because I think it's okay to have some intermittent, pieces that don't have the retail. But so I'm hoping that we would have in the future that would still become or maintain its commercial and retail nature. I especially like the night shot. I think that really says it all. So I'm in support of the project. I don't have, like the materials you picked, everything seems to be of good quality, and I trust that, having seen your work throughout the city, that you will take care of this project and you will detail it the right way. So I'm quite confident of that, and I'm very supportive of it. So I'm for it.
Thank you. I too have similar thoughts. I think you've used very nice materials, and you've organized them in a way that makes sense. I especially like sort of the southwest elevation, sort of the hierarchy that you have of the sort of the anchoring piece, the background, and then sort of the forward that you pull up, and sort of the very different on the opposite side. The northwest one is a little, I'm still growing attached to it. It's, the other two are really nice. I'd like to see it turn. I think proportionally it almost wants to come in close to maybe 20 feet or so, I think, or 15 to 20 feet coming in, because when you're looking at it from the corner, you're going to see sort of that corner coming in, and if it's too small, then it's just going to look like a surface treatment. And you've already sort of created the proportions by this corner here, and what you have here and here, that's sort of that L shape. So I think to continue that proportion on the other side would make sense. See, I mean, it's great that the neighborhood is here and to support your project, and we too, I mean, we'd like to see it succeed as well. Yeah, I think when I also like on the sort of the main street how we have the screening along the parking. I think ideally we'd like to have some kind of storefront there, best case scenario. But in lieu of that, I think because of the parking requirements, sort of moved everything up. I'm okay with that. So I think the small changes to the sort of the front, and then the treatment of the landscaping that you mentioned, I'd be okay in supporting the project as well. So, do we have a motion? Maybe we could read back some of the comments. Yeah.
First of all, would you like to read the comments back?
Sure, let's do that.
The two that were noted were to wrap the travertine stone around the southeast corner of the building and continue the proportions of the other stairwells, so approximately 15 to 20 feet around the corner.
That's quite what I estimated about, yeah.
The rest, more or less. The second one was to plant taller, narrower trees along the rear, to exchange that, and to increase the size of the plantings from 5 to 15 gallons.
I would say increase the tree size to 36-inch box.
Also to 36-inch box rather than 24-inch?
The strawberry tree just came back to me.
Okay, so from 24-inch boxes to 36.
Okay. And then just the only ones I think that need to be increased are the flax plants to 15-gallon, and the rest are fine.
Okay, we'll make note. Okay. Then there were the staff recommendations, and if you'd like, I can go over them.
Yeah, let's go through them.
One would be to provide a minimum 5.5 high decorative masonry block wall along the interior property line abutting the residential zone. 2, now, and I'm not sure if this is still valid in light of what was just mentioned regarding wrapping the corner, but was the second one, as recommended in the staff report, was to enhance the architectural finish treatment of the east elevation at a minimum with a more pronounced material pattern or with the use of 2 different textures of block.
I think wrapping it would be
I think wrapping it.
Wrap it.
And
so
they're
we'll
using 2 tones.
Can you repeat? You had a concern about putting a block wall between the residential and the driveway?
No, there was actually a code requirement for a block wall, and since it wasn't specified in the plans, we wanted to make sure that that gets into the conditions of approval by the DRB, that it'd be a 5.5-foot masonry high block wall along the rear.
So that will kind of get rid of this, right?
No, that's going to be maintained because that's essentially on the 21 feet back. That.
So we're talking about along here, right?
We're talking about exactly on the property line, adjacent to the residential zone.
But those panels are here, aren't they?
No, those are actually against the building wall.
Oh. Okay. Okay, I got it. Okay, I got it. All right, so you will have a 5-foot height wall there.
Correct. On the property line from the residential.
And then the block, you could make it match, or is it the same as the building?
Actually, I had a question for you, Vivian.
Yes.
The parking layout and the flow of it was a little strange to me. Was that okay?
That was reviewed by Tom Mitchell.
Okay.
And he went ahead and had no
So
problems.
as they go in and it dead ends, it's okay?
Correct.
Okay.
The other item was, well, number 3 was to submit lighting details for review and approval by staff prior to submittal for a building plan check. 4th would be to provide glasscrete and/or decorative paving material as hardscape for all areas adjacent to the public right-of-way. And again, there was the discussion regarding the travertine stone on the surface adjacent to the entryway. So it's up to the board to decide whether you feel the travertine stone on the surface level would be more consistent with the design, or if you prefer the staff recommendation of glasscrete.
This would be just adjacent to the parkway, right?
This would be adjacent to the public right-of-way.
Right.
Because there is a 5-foot setback on the front. And
I
then
think if
there's
the
that
architects want to do
recess.
travertine, you want to call them.
Did you want to come? Why don't you go ahead and come up? Let's open it up and name and address again, please.
Sarko Marcusi, 320 Arden Avenue, project architect. I wasn't sure, is it a grasscrete or glasscrete?
Glasscrete.
Recycled glass
It would
inside
be,
the
so it adds that little spark. Remember
Sort
when
of
we,
like a
in our
ground
discussion?
cover between the sidewalk?
It's not a ground cover.
Concrete
It's
that has glass chips in it.
correct.
Looks like quartz counter, but for the ground.
Right.
Okay. Because that 5 foot is part of a dedication to the future street widening. And for temporarily, you want that to be a glasscrete?
That it be decorative paving.
Decorative.
So glasscrete was
Just a
just
suggestion.
an
Or
option.
decorative
Is-
Oh,
I
okay.
think if you're okay with if you can do the travertine.
Is the application, I'm sorry, the application
like
is
to
more
do
like a
travel to-
terrazzo?
It's actually, it's just a clarification because there's, the 5-foot strip that's going to be adjacent to the public right-of-way. As opposed to having just concrete,
Okay.
staff's suggestion was to have some
Glasscrete.
sort of decorative paving, whether it's glasscrete, decorative paving, or the travertine.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
It's
because-
either or, but
yeah.
just not plain concrete
would you
in
like
that
to
area.
No, the travertina was within the footprint of the building. That's what we're using. The steps and the landing at the entrance, that's travertine. But between the building and the sidewalk, which is the 5 feet, I don't have a problem either way. I can,
Maybe we could just extend what you're using.
yeah, I can extend the travertine, be probably more
Okay.
homogeneous with.
I'm
or-
okay with that.
Or
I don't have
grass.
an issue
It's just
either
a-
way. I can work with the staff
But
on
then we
that.
leave it open.
Okay, we'll
We
leave
could
it
use
open.
that. That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. We'll close it back up.
All right, thank you. Comment, or the 5th suggestion by staff was to submit an updated site plan showing all mechanical equipment as being, is being required prior to building plan check. This is to ensure that we don't have any oops during construction and you have a huge fire line in the middle of a park landscape planner.
We don't want the sprinkler risers right in the corner.
Exactly. A sprinkler rise, we've had that happen recently too many times. So, and the last comment was to eliminate all existing unused curb cuts.
Do we know how many there are or where they are?
There are actually, I believe,
Front,
right. There are 2 on Victory, and I believe that there are also 2 on Thompson. So just to make sure that those are addressed as part of public works improvements for the site.
Okay.
The street tree is going to remain?
The street tree, no, we're hoping to get that replanted. So I know that there's consistency throughout. There's further down. So we'll work with the maintenance services department to ensure that there's a street tree.
Okay.
With that said, so we have 2 up.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, sorry.
if I may use this opportunity just to make a couple of general points that this project that arose during this discussion. One is regarding the possibly red curbing the street to the commercial street. This board only considers matters about the public property. The Transportation Department, I don't know whether it's staff or whether it's the Transportation and Parking Commission, would be the ones who would deal with parking and whether parking should be removed for better traffic flow. We'd be happy to direct you to the appropriate people to make that request, but they're not going to be able to do it, even if they agreed with you 100%. And secondly, Ms. Palmer mentioned a specific species of tree. we're going to have to check that species as well as every other species of plant here to make sure that is on the Metropolitan Water District's Be Water-wise list. So.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently, when we had talked with you earlier about it, we had thought that our ordinance read that it needed to be drought tolerant, but apparently the ordinance that was rewritten in accordance with the GWP requirements for the second level drought doesn't allow any flexibility. So all of the planting that is proposed for DRB projects need to be included on that Metropolitan Water District list. So we thought we would clarify that.
Okay. I just wanted to say something. I know that Mr. Ryan Harper, right? He had mentioned sort of in the business that they're in, they're greatly affected by noise that's coming from the exterior. And I would just say that please get in touch with them. I mean, talk and get it worked out, because the last thing you want is somebody that's like right in front of you to get annoyed at what you're doing. So nip it in the bud now and please work together. So that's the only thing. Okay. Do we have a...
So, but first of all,
Okay,
we
let's
would
talk
need
about
to
that.
have the environmental mitigated negative declaration adopted by the board. So, and that was submitted along with submitted in your packet.
So they just had the additional testing that they wanted done, right?
They just needed that additional verification regarding the liquefaction issue.
Liquefaction issue, okay.
We
I
just
would
have
move
to
we
acknowledge
approve
that.
that.
We just have to acknowledge
You have
that.
to just approve it.
Yeah.
So
Move that we approve that.
Second.
a motion by Board Member Palmer, a second by Board Member Aliano. Board Member Aliano?
Yes.
Board Member Palmer?
Yes.
Chairman Yu?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. And now on to the Design Review Board motion.
I move that we approve the project with the conditions presented.
Thank you. That's a motion made by Board Member Palmer, a second by
Me.
Board Member Aliano. Board Member Aliano?
Yes.
Board Member Palmer?
Yes.
And Chairman Yu?
Yes.
The motion passes 3-0.
Thank you very much.
And to remind the board that September 22nd, the council will hear an item on window replacement review and draft guidelines for window replacement, primarily in single-family homes, but also applying to multifamily as well. And that the DRB discussion, the study sessions that we've had, will be reporting that back to council on October 20th. That item was originally scheduled for September 22nd, and it's gotten moved now to October 20th. So we anticipate that the meeting next Tuesday may be a fairly lengthy meeting, so you, if you don't prefer to come down to watch it in person, you could always watch it online. Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder.
Online or Channel 6?
Any other business?
Okay, we had a set of minutes. However, those minutes were not ready for distribution or review, so those are going to be carried over to the next meeting.
Okay.
With that, staff has no other further announcements. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to
Move we
adjourn.
adjourn.
Thank you very much.
Adjourn.
Okay, thank you.